Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Keeping an Eye on the Geopolitical Ball with myself, Jamie Shea, Senior Fellow at Friends of Europe. When I was a young NATO official back in the early 80s and we were all going on our August holidays, I well remember that for NATO Secretary Generals, it was almost impossible to stray too far away from Brussels because nearly every August there would be some kind of incident in the Aegean or the Eastern Mediterranean between our two allies, Greece and Turkey, dogfights, provocative military exercises in the middle of the tourist season, even disputes over islands just off the Turkish coast where no human being lived, but only sheep. And this was serious stuff because on three occasions since the 1970s, Greece and Turkey have almost gone to war over these kind of disputes. And the NATO Secretary General invariably had to organize some kind of round table to talk sense to both sides and to try to de-escalate the situation. Over the years, we hoped that this situation could improve. For example, after earthquakes that occurred in both Greece and Turkey a few years back, both sides reached out to each other, providing humanitarian aid. We almost came close to a resolution of the Cyprus issue when the United Nations mediated on the basis of the Annan Plan. And when Turkey was seriously pursuing its EU membership talks, there were hopes that these talks would produce a more democratic Turkey, more European Turkey, and both Greece and Turkey would have an incentive to normalize their relations because Turkey, of course, would need Greek support to be able to ultimately join the EU. But what we've seen over the past summer weeks shows that unfortunately we seem to be back to point zero in the Greek-Turkish relationship. Disputes over oil and gas drilling rights in the Eastern Mediterranean have led again to the dogfights, the large-scale, short-notice, provocative military exercises, a heightened rhetoric, even threats of war. What can we do to diffuse this current situation and get things back on a more peaceful track? I think there are four things that could be considered. Firstly, it's good to see that the NATO Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, is once again playing the traditional NATO role. NATO is key here because it's the one organization that both Greece and Turkey belong to. The Secretary General's launched technical talks. The chairman of the NATO Military Committee, Air Marshal Stu Peach, is in Ankara. And what NATO can do is to provide preventive measures to avoid incidents happening, to set up an airspace and a sea space, maritime monitoring regime for the Eastern Mediterranean, to arbitrate, as NATO recently did very successfully when there was a dispute between France and Turkey over a collision between a French and a Turkish ship. The second thing that we need is for Greece and Turkey to reach out to the two big players, Germany and the United States, to agree a de-escalation package to lower the temperature. For instance, a halt on drilling activities for the time being, a halt on declaring new maritime economic or exclusion zones in the Eastern Mediterranean, or trying to involve other regional powers, such as France, such as Egypt, such as Libya, in these disputes. The agreement to appoint a legal team of arbitrators. The third thing is that the EU has a very important role to play here. Of course, Greece belongs to the EU and Turkey doesn't. And naturally, the EU will want to support Greece, its member state, and has even threatened Turkey with sanctions if it doesn't desist from provocative military behavior. But it's important in this dispute that the EU is seen as an honest broker, which is able to nudge both sides towards the negotiating table. Fourth and finally, Charlie Michel, the president of the EU Council, has made an interesting proposal for an international conference, maybe under UN auspices, to bring Athens and Ankara around the table to negotiate some kind of deal on sharing the oil and gas resources of the Eastern Mediterranean in an equitable way. And it's important that we start thinking about what that conference could look like, what the mandate would be, what the parameters would be. Would it be only Greece and Turkey, or would it involve involve the other regional players too. This week, President Macron has invited the EU Mediterranean countries to meet with him in Corsica in the so-called Med7 dialogue. And this is the time also when these countries need to think not only how they bump from one crisis to the next in their relations with Turkey, but how they map out a viable long-term strategy for better integrating Turkey into Europe, because only that can ultimately solve these disputes in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you very much for following me today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and I look forward to joining you again this time next week. Bye for now.